So good morning, everyone. Dan Spatz on behalf of the Dallas Area Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Community Affairs, first session of 2026. Our guest this morning is Mr. Nate Stice, coordinator for North Central Regional Solutions Team with Governor Kotek. Nate is going to tell us all about that, current goings on, and the governor's economic strategy as part of his presentation. But before we get started with Nate, I'm going to go around the room and ask for organizational updates, things of that nature. So please identify yourself and tell us what is going on as we launch into 2026. I'm going to start with Trish Neal in my upper left-hand corner.
Good morning. I'm Trish Neal. I am with Legal Shield, and I was recently appointed the regional manager for Alaska for Legal Shield. And so I will post my information in the chat for you.
Thank you, Trish. Mr. Roger Nichols.
There we go. Thank you. Roger Nichols, reporter for Y102 and also working with the Columbia Gorge News and the Goldendale Sentinel. I just want to mention that yesterday a couple of interesting things at the Wasco County Commissioners meeting. One good, one bad. The negative one is that Al Barton from Center for Living said that Pacific Source was going to try to cut their funding 30% and sent them and said, we won't take any negotiations. You either do this or we drop the coverage. He said there were 3 particular programs out there that are very expensive to run and deal with the people with the biggest mental problems in this, and they end up in the hospital or in jail or with the sheriff. So that's the negative. On the positive side, the Columbia Housing Authority has announced they're building, I've got the rest of the funding for their $47 million project to build a 76-unit affordable housing with 20 units dedicated to veterans and the rest for families and individuals that qualify for the particular level of below the federal poverty line. So that's the way it goes, up and down. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for both of those pieces of information, Roger. I'm going to organization I'm involved with. I need to check on that first one. Thank you, sir. Corliss Marsh.
Morning, everyone. Corliss Marsh. I'm with Habitat for Humanity in the Library Senior Center. Just current update, Friday night, the Community Concert Association fundraiser, Dancing with the Gorge Stars. And so come on out and have a great time.
Thank you, Corliss. And thank you for joining us. Mr. Philip Mosher.
There. Hello there, Philip Mosher with Sotheby's Real Estate. I'm calling in from Sweden, in fact, an island in the Baltic off the Swedish coast, where I tend to spend a few months every winter. So I don't have any super current updates. I do send out a newsletter every month. This month, and it's mostly focused on what's going on in the community. This month, I was amazed to see that even more than other Januaries, there was much less going on. Of course, the museums and a lot of the art organizations that I follow, many of them are closed. The Art Center does have a number of really interesting things going on towards the end of the month. I also had a couple events in there from MCAC. I won't bore you with the details now, but if anybody's interested in being added to my newsletter list, please just email me and I'll put my email in the chat box. Thank you.
I would encourage that. It's a neat newsletter, Phil. I appreciate you putting the time into that. Julie Reynolds.
Good morning, everyone. With Fort Dallas Museum and historic St. Paul's Episcopal Chapel. I guess the museum's closed right now, but the chapel is going to be hosting in the parish hall all year 6 Rivers Dispute Resolution Center. They're going to be working there 2 days a week, and we're really pleased to have them because that's the kind of organization that we are happy to have hosted at the chapel. Thank you.
That's great, Julie. And speaking of a fascinating event venue, if you haven't seen that one, check it out, folks. It's neat. Ms. Olson.
Good morning. I'm Misa Olson with Vocational Rehabilitation's Workforce Team, and I'm working on that Youth Expo, Career Readiness Expo project that's going to be in your neck of the woods in end of February, I think February 25th. And I've got the employer panel pretty dialed in. We could still use some volunteers for the mock interviewing portion of the event. So if anybody's interested, I'll put in my email and you can just email me. Dan has graciously offered to volunteer for that portion of our event, and thank you for that. That's it for me.
Yes, Mies, if you put information in the chat, and actually the same for anyone on the call here, events, contact information, please feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat. Mr. Scott McKay.
Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay. I am with Circles of Care, although we're no longer taking any new members for Circles of Care because we do not have a community liaison for the program right now. But I'm also involved with the Dementia Friendly Wasco County Partnership, looking at ways to provide respite support and education. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Bill Lennox.
Oh, good morning, everybody. I'm with the Six Rivers Dispute Resolution Center. I've been on the board for a number of years, and we are so excited about the fact that we're going to be sharing the space at St. Paul's, the historic chapel. In fact, that's going to be happening today. I'm going to be helping move from the Harding House, which is the Wasco County house that we thought we maybe had space in, but now we're so lucky to be able to move into St. Paul's. So so with that, I'll pass this on to the next person. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Mike Wacker.
Good morning, everybody. I'm with Fort Dalles Museum and Key Club and Kiwanis Club. Actually, the museum is open now, limited hours from 11 to 4, just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if you want to go up, and it won't be busy, so you'll have it all yourself probably. Also, we will have our board meeting next Tuesday at 5 o'clock at the county building downtown. And Kiwanis Club, today's speaker is actually Roger Nichols. So if you want a good lunch and hear a good presentation, see you at Spookies. Y'all have a good day.
Sounds good, Mike, and the same to you. Thank you. Leslie Naramore.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Leslie Naramore. I'm the Executive Director of Mid-Columbia Community Action Council. I think last time I shared about the unit conversion at the annex, but I wanted to share a little bit more about that. So we're in the process right now of converting 22 units at the annex into permanent supportive housing. And as we've been kind of sharing that out into community, there seems to be some confusion. And I want to make sure that people understand that there's 54 units there and we're transitioning 22 of them. So the other units will remain transitional as they are. And the family side will stay exactly the same. So we're not losing any of those units for families. And then as we move into that permanent supportive housing, a lot of the residents who are currently there will become the permanent residents. So we're not going to be displacing anyone. And then the other thing that I wanted to share is on behalf of the long-term recovery group for the Rowena fire. We have held our first unmet needs roundtable, and we did distribute funds to one individual to help them with repair of their sewer system. Thank you.
That's great. I'm glad that's moving forward, Leslie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Darcy Long.
Good morning, Darcy Long, Empower Financial, and I do comprehensive financial planning for both individuals and families as well as businesses. And of course, healthcare is a big thing right now. And so I do have some supplemental options that can help people bridge the gaps that are there. I also do all kinds of other insurance and investments. I am on the board of Columbia Gorge Community College as well as the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce. I am the treasurer for the executive board.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us this morning, Darcy. Counselor Dan Richardson.
Good morning, Dan Richardson here. I'm with the Dalles City Council. So you can see I don't have a great deal to share this morning, but as you can see, the city's been continues to be busy with its upgrade and maintenance projects, with street sewers and water around town, as it should be. We have City Council coming up on Monday, so I encourage folks who are interested in sort of seeing the business of their city in action to zoom in or to come on down. And happy to, as I told a couple of folks, I'm happy to meet with constituents who have concerns or just want a phone call or a cup of coffee. So if that's ever something that occurs to you, please feel free to reach out to myself or any of your other counselors. I see Scott's on here. I'm sure he's also willing to chat with folks. We're your representatives. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dan. And Counselor Randall, I see from the text that your mic and camera are out. If there's any information you'd like to put into the chat box, or if you're able to connect, please feel free. And with that, let's go. Oh, Dr. Kenneth Lawson, Columbia Gorge Community College, sir. See if you're on board, sir. Kenny, you're there? Wait for Kenny on a second. Let's go to Jacob L.
Hey everybody, Jacob Lovick with Columbia or Mid-Columbia Economic Development District, as well as Mid-Columbia Innovation Hub. I'll share in the chat. We do have an event tonight in Hood River at the Ruins. We support the traded sector, innovative companies, especially a high growth sector. But really, it's for everybody. Anyone who's thinking about starting something, we're having a panel discussion this evening that will be focused on the idea of going for it, starting your business, starting your next project. Awesome panel, including Samantha Irwin from Kaizen Business Consulting, Aaron Baumhockel from Solstice Woodfire Cafe, and then we also have Timothy Wilder from Hook 'em Good, which is a fish and bait company that started in last year. It's a McKay loan client. So love to see you all out there and get more involved in the community.
Fantastic, Jacob. Thank you for joining us. I think you've grown a beard since I saw you last. Very
It's
good.
the winter beard. It's a little more full. It hides my face a bit more.
All right. And if Kenny is able to join us, we will provide updates from the college. But in the meantime, I'm going to turn this over to our guest this morning, Mr. Nate Stice. Nate, you are co-host, and as we discussed earlier, people are welcome to ask questions during the presentation afterward. So take it away, sir.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. And I'm going to apologize in advance if I take a lot of sips of coffee as I'm going. I have a 2.5 and a 1-year-old at home. And so I live off coffee these days. So as Dan mentioned, I'm Nate Stice. I'm Governor Kotek's Regional Solutions Lead for a couple of regions, including the North Central region, which includes Hood River, Wasco, Sherman, and I include Gillum and Wheeler in that. And I also cover the North Coast and serve on the governor's housing team. The Dalles is my home. It's been my home for a decade now. And originally I'm from Umatilla, Oregon. So the side that wasn't pretty enough to be formally included in the Columbia River Gorge. So thank you everyone for being here this morning. And thank you, Dan, for the time. I am going to walk through regional solutions, give everyone an introduction to regional solutions, talk about some of the current work that we're working on, and then move into talking about a couple of particular items. Thanks, Leslie, for mentioning the brewing and recovery. I'll talk about a couple of things that the governor's really focused on and interested in there. And then I'll also talk about the governor's prosperity roadmap. I think Dan also mentioned that I'm on the community college board with Darcy. And so I've got a couple of things I want to add there, and I might punt to Kenny at that point to add any more detail. And then I'll also just mention for introduction that I recently joined Leslie's board as well. So um, uh, really appreciate this forum and folks being up early to engage with the community. So you're gonna bear with me with a second while I try to figure out how to share uh, my screen here.
Green button, lower center of your screen.
It's more the specific sharing what I want to share, not what
Okay, sir. All righty.
not sharing what I don't want to share. All right.
It's showing up here, Nate. I'm seeing it.
All right.
There we go.
So Regional Solutions is housed in the governor's office. It's really a uniquely Oregon approach to community and economic development. We bring together state and local governments, sovereign tribal nations, businesses, philanthropy, community-based organizations to identify and advance local projects, solve problems, and seize opportunities. I like to tell folks that our job, and I've been in Regional Solutions for a decade now between two governors' administrations, is really to empower communities to meet their community and economic development goals. So I like to go out to communities and say, from the government, we're here to help, and bring along with me a team, which I'll talk about in a moment. I guess people aren't awake enough for that joke. Uh, uh, and uh, and
We're
talk
awake, Nate. We're awake.
how we solve how we help meet what communities want to work on. So it's really a bottom down, top up approach to economic development where, I work for the highest elected official in the state and I go to communities and ask them what the state can do for them. Uh, there are 11 regional solutions regions. Ours is the one in pink right here. Each region has an advisory committee that helps identify regional priorities. This is a group of local stakeholders that help define help to advise the governor on what the state should be thinking about for a region, and also help the team think about what we should be focused on. Uh, there are 6 regional solution centers. Don't really matter for our region. We don't have one here. I'm the regional solution center in my basement right now. And then there's also a team of state agency and local partners that help to, again, work directly with communities to advance their projects and priorities. Our advisory committee includes some folks that whose names you will recognize. Amanda Hoey, Wasco County resident with Oregon Wheat, is our convener. She chairs the committee. Judge Joe DeBolskis of Sherman County, the chair of the court there, is our representative selected by the Association of Oregon Counties. Mayor Rich Mays recently joined as the city representative. A business representative, we have Megan Thompson with Sage Fruit. Our philanthropic representative is Paul Lindberg with Hackery Consulting. We have Deborah Whitefoot with Nichiwana Housing as our tribal representative, and Martine Campos Davis of the Oregon Human Development Corporation. So you see, we have a good representation from across the 3 counties that make up the region, cross-sector, and sort of folks who are at the top of their fields and leaders in the community and the state. So the real role of the advisory committee is to serve as again, a conduit to the governor to advise her on sort of what the most important priorities are for a region at any given time. The advisory committee just had the opportunity in December to present their compiled priorities to the governor. Now we're moving into a phase where we're going to talk about how we can do a little bit more strategic work towards those priorities. In addition to working on, these folks signed up for a little bit more than they thought they did. In addition to working on the governor's economic prosperity roadmap. So be careful when I come knocking to ask you to volunteer for something. The regional solutions team is a cross-agency, cross-functional team that includes the following agencies: Business Oregon, the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, the Department of Land Conservation and Development, the state's land use agency. Sorry, Business Oregon is the state's infrastructure and economic development agencies. They're focused on business recruitment, retention, and expansion, but also help to do infrastructure, water, wastewater, financing, grants. The Oregon Department of Environmental Quality is the state's air, water, and land regulator. They also have programs that are focused on building infrastructure to help with those areas. The Oregon Housing and Community Services Department is the state's housing finance agency. I think we're all probably too familiar with ODOT right now. It's the Oregon Department of Transportation. They keep our highways and roads open and work with communities on transportation projects. And whatever agency I want to call in for the day is also a member of my team. So I have the ability in my role working for the governor to directly reach out to state agency directors to work on priorities or to ask for agencies to be present to help communities address issues. So my formal role is called a Regional Solutions Coordinator. These are my colleagues from around the state. And if you can't tell, I stole this presentation from someone else.
Looking good, Nate.
This is at the Mount Angel, the Mount Angel Seminary Retreat or whatever it is out there. It's a seminary. But I think the important thing on the previous slide is if you have an issue that you want to bring to the attention of the state and the governor, I'm your conduit for that. You always feel free to call or email me, and I'll put my contact information in the chat. Talked a little bit about the role of regional solutions and the value we bring. We help to coordinate agencies on complex projects. If there's a project where you have to work with, say, the Water Resources Department, with DEQ, with Business Oregon, to bring about a community project, that's where we can step in. In particular, one area that I've played a lot in projects like, say, the Dog River Pipeline is when folks are having an issue with a regulatory agency and need help in getting a project over the line. So if you're running into barriers with regulatory agencies, either state or federal, or, I'm gonna not look at the city too much, but even sometimes helping with local government regulatory processes, I'm happy to help. And I've been helping communities with advancing projects again for about a decade now. It's connection to resources. I'm always keeping an eye on state, and if they exist anymore, federal resources for projects, and helping to connect folks. I think, Dan, you'll recall some early emails where there were some resources for our child care center that has since gone away. I helped to make an early connection on some of those, just as an example of where I can help find resources.
You did indeed, Nate. That was a luncheon with Governor Kotek, and it was very, very helpful early in those days. Thank you.
Fortunately, that project I think is on the shelf for the moment as we trying to find a gap after you brought in that huge chunk from the EPA that disappeared into thin air. So, one common practice of the Regional Solutions team is to go to communities and bring the full team, everyone on that list, and often more partners to talk to them about their full list of priorities or particular projects they're working on. In the last little bit, we've done one with the city of the Dalles. We've done one with the city of Mosier. We recently had one with Sherman County. We'll just bring the full team and talk through a list of issues. So, for example, we just talked to Sherman County about and all of their cities there about their projects. Talked a lot about water and wastewater projects that the cities are facing in the special districts. Also talked about a housing project that the county's working on. So always happy to sit down and in real time problem solve with communities and make connections. I love going into these meetings, and I'll just sometimes pull out my laptop and do real-time introductions to folks in the state who folks need to talk to, either to push through a regulatory barrier or identify some funding. A couple of sort of more formal processes that we engage in are called first stops and one stops. These are specifically focused on infrastructure financing. A first stop is when communities know they have an infrastructure need, but they're just getting started. We can bring a group of agencies together that have funding, including state and federal, typically Business Oregon, Oregon DEQ, and USDA Rural Development, to talk about everything from feasibility funding to actual financing for projects. And then once a community has a sense of what the project is, they've gone through, leveraged the feasibility funding, we can then bring together some of those same agencies in what's called a one-stop funding meeting, where we'll actually go through and present financing options and help the community think about the best deal between different funding agencies. Again, those are usually the key agencies are Business Oregon, DEQ, and USDA Rural Development. Sometimes we'll add in their Water Resources, who has a grant funding program. Sometimes in first stops, we'll talk about the EDA. And then, one thing, a role that I've played a lot here in the community in the past and continue to play, thank God, to a less degree since OEM and local capacity, the Oregon Emergency Management Department and local capacity has increased, is really in disaster response and recovery. So, I tend to get calls from elected officials when um, uh, the community is facing a disaster situation, whether it's the tie plant is on fire or the hills above the Dalles, our neighbors, are facing evacuation. And then, the governor asks us to continue to watch the recovery process from those. So I've been very involved in the Rowena fire recovery, and I'll just mention here that the governor, as you probably all have read in the newspapers, a particular interest in it, committed state resources in a way that was new for the state of Oregon. Oregon doesn't have any particular funding for disaster recovery. And the Rowena fire fell short, as many fires do, of the FEMA threshold to get federal disaster relief. So in the absence of that, the governor pledged to support many different parts of disaster recovery. Lots of state agencies have been involved in providing technical assistance, but in particular in this case, to help with debris removal, which would typically fall on individual homeowners. But in this case, the state stepped up and I think found $3.5 million in partnership with our legislative delegation to help with those costs. So I've been very closely tracking the long-term recovery group, helping to bring in resources, including the Willamette Partnership, which is helping to do some work on some utility issues out that way in Rowena, and just grateful for the partnership and folks stepping up in this situation to help our neighbors up there in Rowena. Talked about outreach meetings. Here's just some fun pictures from my colleagues out in the field. The Regional Solutions Advisory Committee and regional priorities. These are the priorities that the North Central Advisory Committee landed on. The governor offered the advisory committees 3 categories to ask them to talk about how those priorities present locally. There's themes we heard from across the state as we were starting this work around housing production, community resilience, and infrastructure. And then the advisory committees chose 3 priorities of their own. And so the 3 priorities that the advisory committee chose here were economic opportunity for future generations, bi-state opportunities, and strengthening the regional spirit of collaboration. Under housing production, always looking for innovative solutions to housing. And then I don't think we can talk about housing in our region without talking about land availability and readiness. And this, is really meant to talk about everything from how we prepare our currently urbanized lands and think about opportunities on both sides of the river to expand that work. Under community resilience, really thinking about how we enhance resilience resources, make sure that we're communicating with vulnerable populations, and in particular, underserved populations like the Latino Hispanic population when we're in disaster situations and when we're thinking about recovery. During the conversation about this, some advisory committees specifically brought up making sure that we have Spanish language communications going out. I think our region is no stranger to ice storms and fires and other hazards, and I have witnessed over the years just increased local capacity in communities working to address these situations and help come together for recovery. And the advisory committee wanted to highlight that particular area of work. One area that I've heard a lot about in the advisory committee, which might be a little stacked towards the agricultural community, is really focused on agricultural sector resilience. I think, our farmers are facing a lot of headwinds from the market, from regulation, from retaliatory tariffs, and it's the continued um, continued concern about the future of that sector, which is, a core to our economy. Um, Another focus is small business resilience. Every time there's a fire or an ice storm, and I think it's already, come up here this morning, came up yesterday, and the Mid-Columbia Economic Resilience Team is small businesses, tend to suffer the most without uh, a lot of reserves and really living on thin margins. So thinking about how we can increase small business resilience and partnership, say with the SBDC, and also raising up that as an issue at the state. Under infrastructure, uh, I don't think there's any larger infrastructure project in the region than the Hood River White Salmon Bridge replacement. Also, the Bridge of the Gods came in there. One of the things I like to remind people is that everybody poops. And so we have a need to make sure we're taking care of our basic water and wastewater infrastructure. In presenting this to the governor, I actually found a great graphic that is a book that I bought for Aiden, my 2.5-year-old, for Christmas, which is a book called "Where Does My Poo Go?" So great reading. Uh, Thank you to Clint's for getting that for me. And then one particular thing that we continue to hear about for utilities, especially water and wastewater utilities, is the human infrastructure. Our poop has to have physical places to go and has to have people who want to operate the poop plants and the water plants to keep that infrastructure flowing. So there's a couple of layers here. There's just getting the human resources, the people in there who can take those jobs, and it's becoming harder and harder to find operators, whether it's through consulting companies. We've had a couple communities who say Jacobs Engineering has just come to them and said, we can't support your community anymore. A related issue here is capacity to go out and seek the grants and think about the planning and funding to do large infrastructure projects. And then there's a third layer here is governance. A lot of our smaller communities and special districts in Oregon has like an ungodly number of special districts compared to other states that run water and wastewater operations. Often they can't find boards. They can't find people who want to serve on their boards because it's a pretty thankless job. So we're thinking about all of these things. I've been talking with folks like the PUD and others about how we can help bring people together to talk about these issues and think about how we can collaborate on solutions. So um, the committee came up with economic opportunity for future generations, which is a smorgasbord of items that really we came up with this title to cover. One of the big ones, which I think will be near and dear to folks on this meeting's heart, is education and workforce facilities, including childcare facilities. Really, the advisory committee has a pretty narrow lane of thinking about, what the state can do, but folks on the advisory committee really wanted to make sure that we at least included a reference to education facilities, especially K-12 education facilities, since they're vitally important to our community. I would like to send my children to schools here in the Dalles that don't leak asbestos from the ceiling, and would love to pass a school bond. So I think I just stepped out of my regional solutions role for a second into my role as a parent, but that was one of the particular pieces. And then workforce facilities, I guess, later in my presentation as a member of the college board, I was going to thank the community for helping to pass a bond that's really helping to keep the college operational and make sure that we don't run into any major facilities issues. So, um, and then of course, I am learning the value of childcare facilities. And we still have a shortage here of childcare, and hope that we can maybe figure out how to keep uh, Dan's the Spatz Child Care Center alive out there. So
Columbia Gorge Early Learning Center, Nate, but thank you.
the Dan Spatz Columbia Gorge Early Learning Center. Uh, One ongoing piece, and this is stolen directly from the comprehensive economic development strategy that McKay puts together, is economic diversification is always on regional leaders' mind when it comes to economic development, making sure that we have a diverse economy, making sure that even within key sectors like the UAV, drone sector, that we're diversifying our supply chain and who we're working with. Paul Lindbergh on our group wanted to make sure we didn't lose the importance of supporting the nonprofit sector. And of course, you can't go out and talk to businesses or nonprofits or any employer without hearing about the shortage we have in workforce. So, one thing the advisory committee really wanted to make sure the governor understood is that we play as a team between Oregon and Washington. And that if we're going to think about the future of this region, we have to think about bi-state collaboration. I think there's no better example of this in the Gorge than the Dallasport Airport and industrial land, and really a unique partnership that the city of the Dalles is actively engaged in, which is, when I am asked where we have industrial land left in the Gorge, I point there mostly. Um, and also, point to efforts to think about where there might be opportunities for future industrial land and, tax revenue on this side of the river as well. And then, I think we also can't talk about housing without talking about both sides of the river. Regional Solutions in the past has been involved and helped to launch several different bi-state conversations around housing and how we address the housing issues. And then Regional Solutions is one of the groups that really serves as connective tissue in the community, right? Like I am rarely at the head of tables anymore, thank God. But we really want to make sure that we're empowering local institutions and helping to make connections when possible. And the advisory committee really wanted to highlight the importance of this social capital to our region, and wanted to make sure we're calling out the governor that we want to help enhance local partnerships and strengthen local economic and community development ecosystems. So those are the regional priorities. Just on one particular item on the infrastructure, just for reference across the state, this is how folks landed on that infrastructure category in different regions across the state. We publish every other week. We put out a newsletter of sorts. If you want to keep track of what the team here is up to, what Regional Solutions is up to across the state, you can sign up here. So that is Regional Solutions. And I guess I'll pause here for a minute and see if there are any questions before I move on to the prosperity roadmap.
I've been watching for hands. There we go. Let's go with Roger first and then Julie.
I just want to get a little bit of background and find out how you land a job like this, Nate. I know you've been around for a long time, and I run into you everywhere. So how did that guy from Umatilla become the cool dude you are today?
Uh, I don't know. I'm feeling less cool with like bags under my eyes with children and sleep issues, Roger. But so before Regional Solutions, I worked in a variety of roles. I went to school at Willamette and then wound up working at a foreign affairs think tank in DC, interning on the Hill and working on a campaign. I came back to Oregon for grad school and wound up working at the University of Oregon in their government relations and innovation shop for a while. And sort of through connections through grad school, I met my now wife, who moved to the Dalles for the RARE program. And at some point, we decided we should probably live in the same place. And we, both started looking for work, and that met our interests. I was really focused on economic development at U of O. And of course, Carrie has worked at McKay and is now at the Ford Family Foundation. And in any case, we really thought Carrie would probably land a job in Eugene, but turned out that this role came up, and it was an opportunity for me to move just close enough back home. So,
Thank you.
yeah, and then I managed. I was one of the few. I think I was one of three staff members to move between administrations in this last transition. And so I think that's a testament to sort of the collaborative work that we've been able to complete over the last decade that I've been in this role. So.
And we are delighted that you made that transition into the new administration, Nate. That continuity and your expertise has been so important. Julie, you had a question.
Yeah, Nate, my question is about how you work with governmental agencies in Washington. We've got the regional airport that you mentioned as a collaborative effort between the states. Do you have any direct relationship with government in Washington?
Sure. I mean, I mostly interact through pre-existing institutions, right? So the Mid-Columbia Economic Development District has formal jurisdiction over both sides of the river, and they'll often bring together sort of that group. I have also helped to launch bi-state collaborations over the years. The Mid-Columbia Economic Resilience Team, which I mentioned earlier, is actually something that McKay and I collaborated to stand up in response to fires in the past, but then also during COVID-19, we convened that on a regular basis. So that's mostly how I interact there. I also have a direct line to Governor Ferguson's office. We collaborative, make sure we're collaborating on things like around the Rowena fire recovery. There's been a conversation about how we make sure that homeowners are able to move through the National Scenic Area permitting process more quickly. And so I've been engaged both sort of with the Gorge Commission and the staff there, but also with Ferguson's office and making sure we're coordinated and asking them to provide a faster route for people to get back into homes. I think also I think maybe Leslie and I first met through a collaborative effort around that I was on the steering committee for to help put together a series of conversations about housing that were between Oregon and Washington. So I guess the answer is it's sort of through a variety of informal networks, but also sort of more formal convening points. I mean, I think it's also on our advisory committee's list because it's always something that we want to enhance. It's always something where, I used to joke with folks in the Brown administration that they should really send me up to ask Inslee if he'd pay for half my salary so I could go work up in Washington. But It's mostly I will step in and help support the Oregon side of collaborations like the airport, where, like the state of Oregon has invested transportation and planning dollars in Washington, which is very unique. Um, very unique. So, in aviation dollars in Washington. And so that's something where I've uh, helped support those proposals as they work their way through agencies, and the governor has stepped in to help with those. So I did that help answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. I was really curious.
Other questions, other hands raised? Don't see anything right now, or please feel free to add questions in the chat.
And I'll just guess, like, I did mention that I've worked between administrations, but uh, I really enjoy working with this governor because she's not afraid to address hard questions and barriers, and even touch maybe third rails is a bit too far, but even think about some of some of the systems in the state that have a long history in working towards that have created barriers, like the Oregon land use system, right? And thinking about how, uh, in particular around housing, she's done a lot of work to think about how we both remove barriers and the local level, but also think about things like UGB expansions for housing. And so, in one area that the governor is really running at right now is the economic headwinds that the state is facing, and that's where she recently launched the Economic Prosperity Roadmap. The Prosperity Roadmap is really intended to be a guide to work on economic development, and addressing the challenges and the economic headwinds that the state is facing. I'm certain everyone has seen um, some of the indicators and some of the news coverage around we having slowing population growth. Although I just saw in the Oregonian that this trend might have turned around a little bit last year. The moving van data indicates that people are moving back here again, and I'm certain Philip can tell us that people are still buying homes. So, elevated unemployment. You've seen some marquee employers in Oregon move out, and business out migration. We've seen folks like Dutch Brothers who've relocated to Arizona. As an aside, Oregon's always had this problem. We incubate businesses like Dutch Brothers here. They grow up and they leave us. And there's a variety of issues that create that dynamic. I also, just by way of context, should say these are national trends. This is not just Oregon that's facing economic headwinds. It's the whole country. So I think that's an important context. The goals of the roadmap are to retain and grow businesses, to reduce barriers to investment, strengthen partnership, catalyze job creation, and accelerate economic growth. To really meet those ends, we've are going to appoint a chief prosperity officer, hopefully someone with a strong private sector background, and a prosperity council. And to chair the prosperity council, the governor has chosen a few folks who are going to make sure that we're taking a long, hard look at every area of Oregon policy that affects business. And it's Renee James, with Ampere Technologies, formerly an Intel exec, and Curtis Robinholt, who's the CEO of the Port of Portland. So a couple of folks who've been strong advocates for the business community. um, uh, and the Economic Prosperity Council is going to be formed almost entirely of business leaders from both urban and rural businesses in the state. There'll be one workforce seat, one higher education seat, but otherwise it's going to be business leaders who are on there. And really, this council is tasked with looking at everything and bringing back recommendations to the governor and to the legislature. Everything's on the table. Tax policy, incentives, you name it, this group will be talking about it. And I think I'll just go back up to this picture that I grabbed earlier this morning and put in here, and you'll see behind the governor some business leaders in the state, including, Tim Boyle. So I think it's just an indication that the governor's really serious, has gotten a group of folks together to really think about how we address Oregon's competitiveness.
Very good.
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, we have a question in chat. Dan Richardson put a couple of points in there in the chat, and then Corliss also. Are you involved with the Healthy Homes program? I'm not familiar with that one.
I don't think I am. I'm going to stop sharing because I think this is basically the end of my slide deck.
Corliss, could you provide some more background on that one? Healthy Homes? I don't know if Corliss is on. Okay, well.
I will just say Corliss isn't here, but there's a couple of Habitat for Humanity homes that are going up like in my neighborhood, and they are the nicest homes in my neighborhood, I think. So, I mean, ours needs a good paint job, but they're really just nice, good looking housing stock. So appreciate that. And then Dan, what was the question?
So in the chat box, Councilor Richardson has 2 points. Assistance to the Adventist Health Hospital at the state level, what we might be able to do there. And then also the Willamette Superfund cleanup proposal to send a vast number of trucks through the Dalles to the local landfill, something the city and county are engaged with. I'm not acquainted with that second topic myself.
I am.
Okay.
So I am acquainted, and I heard about this at the community outreach team meeting, and just I will say I have flagged that for the folks who are point for that in our office, and have offered to have them come and talk to local leadership. I understand the challenge and the issue, and I think there's some alternative proposals about where that waste might go that would keep it in Portland's backyard. But I brought this to the attention of the governor and the folks who are appointed in our office on this issue, Dan. And if there's any particular messages you want me to pass along, I'm happy to.
Thank you, Nate. I don't want to sort of tread inappropriately into this topic. I've talked to folks at the city just to encourage our engagement, and we have been. Our staff is involved with this, but as you, I think, grasp, it's something that might benefit from a regional perspective, and any support we can get, not to sacrifice the infrastructure and livability of the town just to give them a place to dump sludge. So, thank you.
Nate, sounds like you're on it.
And then I guess on the hospital, counselor, they're on my list of the governor's tasked Regional Solutions of Business Oregon with going and talking to key employers. Really focused on what's called traded sector employers, which are people who produce something and sell it externally to bring money into a community. The hospital doesn't fit that model, but I think is what I might call an anchor business or employer. And so they're on, I've put them on sort of my outreach list to check in, and clearly the health of rural hospitals is on the governor's mind. I think you probably all saw news yesterday that we're due to get something like 200 million in the, hey, we messed up Medicaid, so let's buy you off money that the federal government is sending out. So the state and OHA is going to play a role in distributing those funds, and I think that those are really focused on the health of rural hospitals. So sorry for slipping into a little bit of political commentary, but I sometimes like to call it
all right.
No, I appreciate it, because as you say, it's not a traded entrepreneur in that way, but it is our largest employer in the Dalles. And
I will just say, counselor, everything I'm hearing from rural hospitals across the state is, regardless of this buyout money or this chunk of funding that's coming in, like the changes to Medicaid are just going to be disastrous. We already heard earlier from Roger about Pacific Source and the Mid Columbia Center for Living, and that's not exactly, I think, related probably to this Medicaid issue, but I expect stories like that to continue based on what people are thinking is going to be the future of Medicaid and those funding resources. So I yeah, and it's a big hairy problem that we're all going to have to deal with, especially as it relates to our largest employer in the Dow. So
We are winding down toward the hour here. Nate, first off, fascinating presentation. Thank you for your work, everything that you're doing, and for that all of the information there. Councilor Randall, you had requested the QR code, and I dropped that into the chat. That's Nate. That's for your newsletter. So that I have not subscribed to that myself, and I'm going to. That's good to know. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, and I can put my contact information in that link, and I'll put one other thing in the chat. And I know we're like at 4 minutes, so I'll just take 2 minutes for the college here. And again, the two messages I wanted to say is thank you for the investment through the bond. I think it's critical to invest in education in our community, and I think it's helping the college to continue to work with businesses and expand economic growth in addition to serving our students here. So and then I wanted to also just say that we are looking for budget committee members for upcoming budget process, and I will go see if I can find a link for that, or maybe have Dan send out the link after. But I'm looking at a lot of good candidates here for CGCC Budget Committee. They have to live in the district. So, Dr. Lawson, is there anything you want to add?
Just for a plug for folks on the budget committee, thanks for bringing it up. It is really helpful to have sort of that community perspective as we put together our budget. So,
yeah. Continue to do just the college leadership continues to do impressive things, even with some funding issues that's come up. The partnerships with employers in the workforce continue to the partnerships with K-12 to get people a head start on higher education. I think it just continues to be a great asset to the community. So,
well, if I could maybe then share two things along those lines, and this might interest Dan too. So we are currently advertising for an ag tech instructor and really trying to get our agricultural technology program launched. So if you know anybody that might be interested, that position is on our website. And there was one other thing I wanted to mention too, and that is that we have been pretty aggressive and pretty fortunate to get some federal grants, and particularly for our advanced manufacturing program. And we're expanding some of our capability there. So we have an additive manufacturing lab that we are creating right now up in the Skills Center, and we're going to do an open house for the community on February 20th. We'll get some more details out, but we're pretty excited about that. Our faculty there have just done some really great work, and some of that is in partnership with OSU as well. So we're expecting to be able to get students on a pathway for a 4-year degree. But anyway, more to come on that, but kind of exciting stuff.
That is cool, and congratulations on that ag tech opening, Doctor. That's wonderful to hear. Thank you. Nate.
Dan, I'm having trouble finding the link for the exchange, so I'll have to send you that after the fact.
Nate, go ahead, and I will distribute that right after this meeting or whenever, and we'll get that out there. Thank you. Do we have other questions for Nate before we wrap up this session? If not, Leslie, I see that you've got the same issue with Mid-Columbia Community Action Council, Pacific Source, sign or leave. I'm sorry. Goodness. I put some information in about a rally on Martin Luther King Day coming up through Protect Oregon's Progress fundraiser for families disrupted by ICE activities. And on the chamber side, should note a couple of things. Frosty Trails is coming up January 19th. It's a business promotion effort through the chamber. Check your chamber website on that one. And Wired with the Chamber has a new location in 2026. Starting January 14th, it's going to be at the coffee shop, 116 East 2nd Street. If you don't get the chamber newsletter, do so. There's a whole lot of other cool stuff in there. With that, I'm going to sign off and thank everyone for participating, getting us a strong start to the 2026 Community Affairs sessions. And please join us next week. Kathy Fitzpatrick, Mid-Columbia Economic Development District Transportation, will be our guest speaker. With that, everyone, enjoy the rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Difficult times. We will get through it together. Bye now.